On March 10th of 2018, in the small town of Buckeye Lake, Ohio, Police Chief Jim Handsey received a personal phone call informing him that an elder woman had been chased out of her home by burglars. Chief Handsey would arrive on scene and request that his subordinate officer give the chief his sidearm. They entered the trailer to look for the armed suspects. The trailer was dark, and as Chief Jim Handsey entered one of the dimly lit rooms, he believed he saw what was a shadow moving along the floor. As he began to ready his subordinate officer's pistol, he bumped the top of his hand, resulting in him firing an accidental discharge. It would later be discovered that the elderly woman who lived there in the domicile suffered from dementia and had unintentionally fabricated the story due to her delusions. This unfortunate series of missteps would lead to a full-on investigation of the Buckeye Lake Police Department, and what the detectives investigating the department would find is a Pandora's box of corruption, office theft, laziness, and incompetence. I present to you Once Upon a Time in Little Buckeye Lake, Ohio.
Yeah, and that's that. But the other thing that got brought up by Peggy was some of the hours that were logged in, and then that was also a concern with some of the people we brought that up as well. Some of the hours that you actually worked, and not actually being at work. That was a common theme. Everybody we talked to, that,
right.
You weren't actually at work doing anything. And a couple of them mentioned a computer that you had at home. That your excuse was that you had to go home because you had some information on the computer at home that you didn't at work.
My computer at home is set up the same way the computer at the house. At the office.
Okay.
And if I was at my house doing stuff and writing, you can go to my house right now and I can show you the stuff that I've done, changing policies and changing things. I've had permission from our mayor, Kate Carroll, to go there.
Okay. Have you had permission from this mayor to go there?
No, and I haven't.
Okay. All right.
I wish I'd have brought my phone in. The times that they're probably talking about is I burnt my foot right heel really bad, clear to the bone. And I had to have a special boot. And it hurt to walk in. And I would come in the mornings, I would get the mail like I was supposed to. I would check the phone recorders and do everything else. And then I would go to the house and do what I had to do, But I always had my walkie right there, and they knew this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think part of it too was they said they came over, a couple of times, and you were just wearing shorts and a t-shirt watching cops while you were on duty.
No.
And that was and then when I checked the records, you had them logged down as hours that day. But my concern is if you're at home that day, and that's true. Let's say that's true what he's saying. If you're just sitting around watching cops when you're supposed to be at work, that could be an issue.
Right.
Obviously, you're the chief of police. You wouldn't want one of your guys doing that. So you got to understand from our perspective, looking at numbers and looking at everything else that are brought to us as a concern. We have to try to figure out why or justify why that's happening.
Right.
So and that's why I'm asking you, because I want you to justify to me why that is a reoccurring thing, though, from everybody we've talked to. It's a reoccurring issue that Jimmy goes home a lot, and he'll leave and he'll just stay home.
So Chief Handsey, instead of doing his job on city payroll, is sitting around in shorts and a t-shirt, watching cops, LARPing as a cop, but getting paid to be one as well. And several of his officers in the department are well aware of this reality.
But it's literally a reoccurring thing. Everybody said the same thing. Why do you think that is, Jimmy?
I would go home a lot. But I would not. I would be in blue jeans or my BDU pants and a shirt that always said police. And I would be doing the stuff that I was allowed to do on the computer for the mayor. And then I would go out and go get cards, tag numbers and stuff with the jump cards. And I would do my OLEG or write it up. I wouldn't do the OLEG at the house because I couldn't. I could only do it at the office. But I would write the jump card stuff up. Just because if they come home and see me, I'm in a t-shirt that says police and I'm not wearing my full uniform with the badge and all this, everything else, doesn't mean that I'm cheating the system and not working. I'm doing a lot of things in the background that...
Speaking of that, jump cards, I wanted to ask you about that too. What are your procedures for jumping cars?
You may be wondering where the investigating officer dug up all this information on Handsey, which most of it can be attributed to the information supplied by the vindictive Sergeant Andy Davis and his large file he's compiled on Handsey.
That's what I was referring to.
Okay.
So I had it wrote down.
So all this stuff came in at 10, left at 1:30. You just believe that he's stealing time because of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there was times I'd gone to his house, and the times that he was writing down that he was working, and he'd be in his shorts and no shirt. I mean, he definitely wasn't working, you know, sitting there watching cops or something, you know, so he clearly wasn't working. But he always, it seemed like every day he had an excuse.
Now, keep in mind, this man had a recent bout with cancer and has undergone brain surgery, so his unusual and somewhat creepy mannerisms could easily be attributed to his medical issues, but even the two officers talking with him seem to be more uncomfortable and apprehensive with Davis than they are with the other officers they questioned, despite Davis being the most eager to talk to them. But it might be this eagerness that you can attribute it to. Andy's desire to spill it all on the chief can be seen as pretty petty, and the amount of time he's put into this, waiting for this moment, would make anyone who works with the guy a little suspicious of his intentions, and it would be impossible for most people to establish a level of rapport with a man who literally documents his enemies while putting on a facade of loyalty. Despite the fact that the folder appears to be truthful and the chief's actions do demand some kind of reprimanding, the amount of obsessive documenting implies his actions are more for personal reasons.
Kept encouraging me to take the time off. I think it was so that he could bullshit the other guys that were working and tell them, hey, look, I got these calls I heard, this report I gotta do. He just basically tell them the same thing that he was telling me, but to a different person and get more time off. You know, I strongly believe that that's what was going on. But yeah, not that he only write, you know, he wrote overtime hours on there, 12 hours, not even 10, and he was not at work, and especially at 6 o'clock in the morning, because that's when I came in. I think Vermaiden wrote down, or Jimmy or somebody wrote down hours that he had worked that day, and it would have shown 4 of us working, you know what I'm saying? And there was only 2 of us. I don't want to say they get along, but they don't get along. Ritter's one of those type of people, if he sees something that he doesn't like, he calls, you know, he's not afraid to call bullshit. And so Jimmy really don't like that.
So on 5/5, you put in there, Jimmy hasn't worked all week. Jimmy has down, he worked 43 hours. He didn't work an hour all week. So he didn't work at all this whole week?
I didn't see him.
Who's responsible for your auxiliary hours?
Jeff or me?
Okay. And who's responsible for are you his boss?
Yes.
Okay, so are you also responsible for the hours that go to the city council? You're turning those in the city council, right, as a document?
As the end of the month report, you mean?
Yeah, the end of the month report, where you've got all the hours listed for everybody to work, all the calls we're taking, all that stuff.
And Jeff would estimate the hours.
How's he estimating the hours? I'm confused on that part.
I worked 80 hours a week.
Uh-huh.
I mean 80 hours a week.
Every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks. That's 160 a month, so he'd put 160. He would take what he was supposed to work, divide that by 2, that's what he would get, just down the line like that.
Okay, that's for the full-timers, right?
For the paid, yes.
For the paid people. And Jeff Maiden was in charge of all the paid people to make sure that all of their numbers were accurate?
Well, we would turn in them on the pay slip.
Right, but who was also responsible for that, to make sure those numbers are correct?
Those numbers were estimations, they were never correct, not meant to be correct.
You guys are paid by the hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get paid by the hour, an estimate by the hour? How does that work? Because we have a time clock, we gotta turn stuff, I mean, we literally have a time clock.
So we don't.
Right, which is crazy, but it keeps track of our hours very well.
We used to have a time clock, and for some reason, I don't know why it went out.
But if you don't work, if I estimate you worked 20 hours, but you only worked 15 hours, am I not cheating a village out of 5 hours? Or your police department, with your limited budget, are you cheating yourselves out of hours if you do it that way?
No, because our hours was not estimated, the hours worked was by our time sheets.
Okay.
And then it was verified with Mary over here.
Okay, how would Mary know how much you worked?
Oh, she would see us. I mean, you would write your hours down.
Right.
I mean, you know, like if you go out there right now, I'll sit here with you. You'll see 6 a.m. on my timesheet, but you won't have a time ending.
Okay.
Because before I leave and go home, I would write, okay, let's say I'm up 4 today. I write 4 p.m., the amount of hours, and you come over here and you put the hours.
Yes. Do you have you don't do any kind of trip sheets or anything then, right? 'Cause you're the chief. Who is ultimately responsible for making sure those hours are correct?
Are you talking on the sheet that?
I'm talking about the sheets that you guys turn in to Mary. Who is responsible for those numbers that go over there?
Ultimately, me.
Okay.
But I didn't do their time sheets. They would do, each officer does their own time sheet.
Sure.
Like if you two work for me, you do your time sheet, you do your time sheet, and then on Monday mornings when I come into work, when it was supposed to be turned in, I'd look,
Right.
all right, I know your day's off,
Right.
and I'm gonna know if you're, you had to work over or something. I'm gonna know that, and I just verify through there, and then I sign it.
So then you're ultimately responsible for making sure the numbers are accurate when they go to Mary, who, I assume Mary does some other report as well, or did at the time?
I have no clue. We just turn in our time sheets to her.
But you make a report for city council, or for village council, I'm sorry, if I keep calling it city council, I'm
Yeah.
just used to this. You make a report for village council, right?
The end of the month, they would get a report.
Yes.
On with the fire department and every street department and everything else.
Right, and that report is done by who?
We're making,
Okay, so Vermaiden does the report. He does the report up, and I would assume, since you're the guy in charge ultimately, and you're the one responsible for numbers ultimately, you look at that report. You don't look at the report that Vermaiden's doing?
no, he would come in or on a Friday, when I'm off on Fridays,
Uh-huh.
and he knows Monday is the council meeting, he would do it up, and then he would take it over and give it to Valerie. There's plenty of times I would never see that report.
So nobody looks at what Vermaiden's doing, as far as the numbers go?
On something like that, no.
Okay.
Because they were just estimated numbers of, he could put me down for 160 hours a month.
I'm talking about, okay, I see where you're going with that, I'm sorry, Jimmy. Let's go back, let's say the auxiliaries. Who keeps track of their numbers then? I got where paid guys are, Vermaiden's
Yeah.
in charge of the paid guys. I got
For
it.
Maiden.
So Vermaiden's also in charge of the
Yes.
auxiliaries. Okay, so when those numbers go over, do you check their numbers too to make sure that they're accurate? Because you said, like you said, you know who's coming and going in your police department.
Well, he'd put the hours down for them. They were, some of them worked 16 hours a month. Some of them worked more.
And some of them worked less. In fact, a lot of them worked less.
I have no clue.
But you know who comes, but you know who's coming and going, Jimmy. That's the whole thing I want to get at. You know who's coming and going in the department, and there are people like Schilling. Is it Schilling? Schiller? I know he's
Jason Schilling.
Jason Schilling.
Yeah.
I talked to lots of people, and they said he only comes during taser training. That's it. And he's listed for 16 hours a month,
Correct.
every single month.
Correct. Because Frank Foster, our mayor,
Huh?
said he did our radar, he did our taser, and he did what else did he do? Radar, taser, I want to say self-defense. The mayor said he saved us so much money without having to farm out that training that he would give you the 16 hours every month.
Gotcha.
That was Foster,
So your old mayor,
Frank Foster.
is that 2 mayors ago? So your mayor 2 mayors ago said that was okay.
Yes,
So you guys continue to put 16 hours on the monthly report that's turned into village council,
yes.
even though he was not working 16 hours.
He wasn't physically working 16 hours.
Right.
But he would come out every once in a while.
I agree. No, they said that too. They said he'd come out every now and then. But he wasn't coming out 16 hours a month, was he?
No.
So when you're taking a report and it's just being generated by the police department and it's going over to village council as him having 16 hours a month, that's not accurate.
It may not be 16 hours. You may.
Not only was Handsey cheating the city by watching TV while home on the clock, he was paying many members of his staff hours that they never worked. It almost makes you wonder if he thought his peers would ignore his corruption if he threw them a couple of paid hours they didn't earn.
So if you're putting 16 hours down, it looks like that guy's been there for 16 hours that month. He put in at least 16 hours of time, right?
If you wanted to look at it that way, yes.
I don't know, I really don't know how else to look at it, Jimmy, when it comes to that, because again, yeah, valuable guy, you want to keep him around, you want to keep him happy, but he's not putting the numbers in that you are saying he's putting in. Does that make sense? Is that fair?
I see the number side of things.
Okay.
I see your number
Yes.
side of things.
Now, Vicki Glover, when's the last time she worked for you guys?
Oh, I don't. It's been a while.
Been 2 years, over 2 years. Would it be accurate that she worked in October of 2017? No, but she got 16 hours for that month too, on the report that you guys turned in to village council.
How's that? Because she's in your own department.
Exactly. She's not on the department.
No one took her off the sheet.
No one took her off the sheet, but somebody filled out that she worked for 16 hours.
Yeah, just 16 every month.
And you don't have a problem with that? As a chief of police, I would.
That I do,
Oh,
yes.
I would certainly have a problem with that.
That I do.
Not only
Yes.
that, we've got Bartow. He works a lot, I understand, but not all the time. Well, what's the other name here? Bear.
Tedra?
Tedra does not work 16 hours a month, but it's on there for 16 hours a month. Every month that she's been there, she's got 16 hours a month. I call her, she said, no, that's not accurate. I called the guy she rides with, Haas.
Jeff Haas.
Jeff says, no, she does not work 16 hours a month. Yeah, you guys put 16 hours a month on that sheet.
Again,
You understand, that's a criminal charge. That could be a criminal charge to do all that
there's no
stuff.
monetary value.
There's no monetary value. You're making it public record. You're falsifying a public document because it's going over to village council.
Ritter's not putting his stuff in.
Ritter's name's not even on it.
On what?
Ritter's name's not even on the list of anything that's been done. Go grab one of those packets for me.
Yeah.
Because we didn't grab it. Ritter's name is not actually even on the list of auxiliary officers or part-time officers, full-time officers. His name's not even on a lot of it. So,
Steve's is it?
no, so we wrote it in and put down the stats that he got, and your numbers actually rose. Instead of being down here, they actually rose a lot. So you guys aren't getting credit for a lot of stuff you're doing because his numbers aren't being calculated in that. So, I don't think your village council is getting an accurate number, really, of anything. They're not getting an accurate number of how many people are coming out to work, their hours, or their call volume.
Steve Ritter's name's not on that report.
Yeah, and I'll show you when he brings it back over here. It's not even on there. Yeah, when you open it up, you've got all his call logs. Now, what I did too is I went back and looked at all the call logs, and there are guys and gals that have 0 call logs. None. But yet they got 16 hours listed. And they're not on one call log.
Are they auxiliary?
They're auxiliaries. They're not on any call logs. They're not on anybody else's call log either. They didn't pick up anybody. They didn't take anybody back. They didn't do a slash mark and then put their name on it. Nothing.
They usually put their name on it, like if
Yep.
Tedra.
Some of them do. Most of them don't.
I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I mean-
But you see a problem with the way things are?
I see things needs to be changed.
Sure.
Majorly.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem changing that stuff majorly.
I got you.
But you're right, Ritter's name ain't on this.
Right, it's not on a lot of them. So the
Didn't
reports
know
are just
that.
generated like that, and then they're turned to or village council like that. So, and there's,
You know what, I never even thought to even think of that.
yeah, there's a lot of that. A lot of it.
Wow.
Were there any times, Jimmy, that you claimed some hours that you didn't actually work?
No. There's hours that I work that I don't put down on my timesheet.
So you working extra hours and not claiming?
Yes. My phone would ring constantly and I'd have to go out. I never put all the hours down.
Right.
Because I know we're short of money and I didn't want to work myself out of a job. You can ask any mayor that.
Yeah. What's the most people you guys have had out at one time?
2,
2?
yeah, 3,
At any time, any given day?
usually 2.
Okay.
I would work 6 to 4,
Uh-huh.
and then someone would come out from noon to 10,
Okay.
and they would come out at noon to give me that 4 hours to go in the office and see stuff that I had to do.
Okay. So, is there any time that you would have 3 or 4 people working at once?
No,
No, never?
it'd be nice.
Yeah, right, it would be. So on April 25th, 2017, you had 4 people listed as working at the same time.
Who?
You got Davis, Vermaiden, you, and Ritter. Now also on that day, and I've been told by 2 people, you and Vermaiden went 4-wheeling that day over in Perry State Park, Perry State Forest, which we've called Perry State Forest. We've also called dispatch. We got the call runs and everything else, and who marked in, who marked out, and all that stuff. You guys aren't anywhere on there. You and Vermaiden are nowhere on there. On the call logs,
Right.
see, are nothing, 0.
What day was it?
April 25th, 2017, it was on a Tuesday. Ritter actually got called into work to cover for either you or Vermaiden, one of the 2. He was not on his regular scheduled days.
Yeah, okay.
Do you remember that day? Do you remember going forward with Vermaiden?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It was on
We've
that.
been on several places.
Sure, that was on a Tuesday. And do you you remember going to Perry State Forest?
We've been there several times.
Do you remember going to Muskingum first? And then they're not open, then you went over to there?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yeah,
That's the day, right?
yeah.
Okay, that's the day that you went on Tuesday, the 25th, I think it was.
Okay, then Ritter worked for Vermont and I took the day off.
Okay, so you do remember that day then?
Yeah.
Okay, so you took a day off. What about for me?
Probably used sick time like I did.
Okay, so you used sick time that day?
I'm supposed to, yeah.
So you used sick time that day on the 25th to go out four-wheel. So you weren't sick?
No, I just,
You were just
well, I shouldn't say sick time, it was PTO time.
Okay. What is your PTO time? Explain it to me.
Personal time off.
Okay. What do you have to do to have personal time off? You just get that?
Yeah, our pay stubs don't say sick time, it says PTO, and then we get vacation.
I get you.
You cure so much, and I mean, if you wanted a day off, you just say, hey, I'm gonna take this day off, and just like that day,
Right.
Vermont had to have said, hey, you wanna go there? And I'm like, yeah, get someone to work for me.
Gotcha.
Okay, call Ritter in.
Okay, that's what happened that day then?
Had to be.
Okay. So who called Ritter in? You or him?
I think, you know what, I can't tell you that, I don't remember.
Okay. But you know Ritter was called in to cover somebody's shift?
Yeah.
Okay.
On a Tuesday, it'd be Jeff Vermont by himself.
Right. So Vermeulen would have had to take a personal day off, and you would have to take a personal day off at that point too?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you take a personal day off, how do you notate that you took a personal day off when you guys turn in your timesheets?
Should be put sick down there and then the amount of hours you took.
Okay. How many hours is, now, refresh my memory here. Did you take sick time or did you take a personal?
Right, it's PTO time.
So you don't actually have sick time, you have to take PTO time?
Right.
You would have to just say PTO time across the timesheet or something
Or,
like that?
yeah, sick
sick.
PTO, whatever you put on there.
And that
Yeah.
would be for how many hours?
Well, we both work 10-hour shifts, so it'd be 10 hours.
Okay, all right,
Since we took the whole day off.
gotcha. That was on the 25th, right? That's your timesheet, right?
12 hours, 6 A to 6 P.
Yeah, you see the problem I'm having with that?
Yeah. That should have been, I didn't even finish this week.
Right. That's because somebody grabbed it and made a copy of it because they knew you were out four-wheeling when you were supposed to be at work. That's why that's there.
Yeah.
And because they were concerned that you were taking time off and doing things and claiming time for work.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a copy of that. You probably did actually finish that timesheet, but that's a copy of the timesheet up until that point.
I think we do have the finished one.
And we do have the finished one.
And incentives.
Yeah, so that's your handwriting.
Probably
your
that's my
signature.
handwriting, yeah.
You claimed 12 hours that day
Yeah.
when you weren't there.
Well, I can tell you this. If you go out there and look right now, Steve's isn't done for this week.
Yeah.
And you know what? I just whipped it out and didn't even think about taking that day off. That wasn't taking that day off on, trying to rip someone off. I just should have do it like I do it now, which is fill it out as I go. But that day here, someone may have taken and pulled the copy off it, and I know who it was, Steve Ritter.
Chief Handsey believes that Officer Ritter is behind the copying of the timesheets, but you might notice that this came from the same red folder that was supplied by Sergeant Andy Davis. While Ritter is a Boy Scout when it came to following the rules, I think he lacked the pettiness that Davis had in order to compile an entire document on his superior officer.
But that was not done on purpose. And I'll give them their 12 hours back, but that was not done to steal anything from anybody.
Okay, but you see the problem that the issues that were raised, Jimmy, are legitimate issues.
I can see it.
Because if they're coming to your house and you're sitting around, I'm not saying it's true, I'm saying that's what they're reporting. If you're sitting around watching TV when you're on duty, they feel like you're stealing money from the village. If you're going out and riding four-wheelers on a day you're supposed to be at work and then you claim time off too, that's a problem, man.
Oh, I can see that being a problem. That wasn't done on purpose.
Okay.
I can tell you that.
Oh, that would be Street Department Randy.
Randy
Busey.
So you wrote down here that he came into the station, grabbed the keys to the impound lot because he said he was pulling a fuel pump off.
Yeah, they're taking parts off cars
For what reason?
for his own personal. I think that fuel pump was for his brother,
Yeah, Gary.
Gary.
Okay. And he said that he had permission to do that from
Jimmy.
Jimmy.
And then Jimmy would also give him like all the batteries and, you know, whatever parts before they scrapped them or did whatever they did to them.
Okay.
I think on numerous occasions he would give, like there'd be speakers and stuff in the cars too. Gave him the Ritter.
Were these all cars that were in impound out of cases or what?
Yeah, well, they'd be, you know, DUIs or whatever. Something that nobody picked back up.
So they were scrapped.
They were going to be scrapped, yeah.
Speaking of that, junk cars, I wanted to ask you about that too. What are your procedures for junking cars?
Handsey's face at this moment is absolutely priceless. I can't think of an expression that more perfectly encapsulates the feeling of someone who thought they knew how to hide their shit, realizing that they left it all in the open.
Junking cars?
Yeah, let's say you get a car in an impound, nobody comes and gets it. What is your procedures to get rid of that vehicle?
Run the thing through the state of Ohio. They come back and tell us if there's a lien on it. And then you send that person, or if there's a lien on it, you send that person 10-day notice. Or if there's no lien on it, you send that person the owner 10-day notice. And then if they don't collect it, or we get back about 10 days to pay the towing or anything like that. If not, then I go get a title from the BMV. And then we gather how many other cars we got up, get 3 bids. And then people come out and look at it, you know, like junkyards or private people or whatever. They look at all the cars all at once and give you 3 bids. And the highest bidder gets them.
Okay. And they get them all intact, the way they're supposed to be. Okay. You ever taken any batteries out and sold the batteries?
No.
No? And the reason I'm asking you this setting, Jimmy, is this is a setting where under Gary, you can't be charged with what we're talking about. We can't talk about this criminally.
Right.
Okay, but if that comes out criminally, you know, there's going to be some issues probably with stealing. Okay. So there's been those allegations and a little more than just allegations, very, very specific things that I've checked out that are not making a lot of sense, okay? One of them especially being a water pump that was taken off of a truck for Randy. And Randy gave the water pump to his brother, Gary. And Randy had your permission to take the water pump off of the truck that was in the impound lot. So think about that before you answer me, Jimmy, because I want you to be really honest with me, man.
I am.
My goal here, dude, I respect you. I really do genuinely like you. I want to make sure that you come out of this thing, you know, okay. Whether that's okay with your job, okay without your job, you know, but what I don't want to see is something that, you know, you get charged for or go to jail for.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
If anything was taken off them cars, the village already owned them, and they had permission from the mayor to take anything. I personally have never taken anything off the cars, out of the cars, anything. Now Randy and Mark Dimick has, yes, but they've always had permission, and they've never done anything until the vehicles were owned by the village.
Sure.
And they were going to the junk yard. They were getting loaded up that day or the next day and going to the junkyard to be crushed.
Okay. So it's all the same pile of money, right? I mean, if one car goes, it goes whole, or it goes, are they junking it out? Are they checking for all the equipment? Or are they making sure that if they can pull the engine or a water pump or anything off of that the junkyard would do that? Or you just sell them out as a whole?
Sell them at the car. I've seen it, when I've taken them there, they ran the forks through the forklift, through the windows, picked it up, put it in this thing, put it down.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. But if, I didn't even know about a water pump to Gary. But if it was taken, battery, water pump, I will tell you, I know a jack was taken, but it's scissor jacks, but it was already on the trailer. Trunk was locked, and Randy's like, oh, we got a jack. All right. But the village owned them vehicles. There was permission by Clay Carroll, and nothing was taken until that stuff was taken, the village owned it.
Okay, so when the village owned it, let's say that you guys did everything properly, the village owned it, did you take any batteries then after they owned it? Did the mayor say, hey, you can take these? I'm trying to, you know, explain it for myself in my head why I've had 2 people tell me the same thing now. 2 different people. One, you know, that I would say is completely on your side, one that says maybe not completely on your side, and they're both telling me the same thing. So I'm trying to figure that out why in my head that would be the case. So is there a circumstance or an instance where you did take a battery or 2 after the mayor cleared it?
I've never taken a battery.
Never?
Never.
Okay.
Never.
All right, well, I needed to ask you about that because like I said, I've had a couple of them here, all right? So you don't know anything about Randy taking the water pump?
No.
Okay. Because Randy's saying he had your permission to do it, not the mayor's, he said he had your permission.
Well, he probably asked me, hey, I'm going to get something of one of these cars. And it may have been, it may have been a water pump, but I don't remember. But no one took anything into the village owned vehicles, and they were going to the scrapyard.
All right.
Matter of fact, they took some tires off once for a vehicle. There's good tires that go in the junkyard. We put it up on the thing, they lifted it up, and took the tires off. Because we took one of the village work vehicles.
Honest.
So, it was things like that.
Jimmy, have you ever taken anything from the vehicles that the mayor said you could take? Any of the vehicles that you were going to impound?
No.
Okay. All right.
Jimmy and the mayor at that time were like, they were two peas in a pod, and he just basically got to do whatever he wanted to do. He's really good at bullshitting him. And
What about qualifications? You guys all qualify together or do anything?
no, Jimmy and Bartow would pretty much go qualified prior to us.
Mm-hmm.
And Jimmy would always say that was because Jim was so unsafe that he didn't want to put us in jeopardy. So he wanted to kind of make sure that Jim Bartow, which is like, he's like an 83-year-old man,
Mm-hmm.
or 89 or something like that.
Yeah.
Might be 90, he's really old.
Yeah, he's still working.
Unsafe to be around. But he used to be a former mayor, so him and Jimmy were like this,
Right.
So it's like,
Yeah, I thought I saw that kneeling.
At this point, things are looking pretty bad for Handsey and his department. To an almost cartoonish level, his department is full of incompetence and corruption. Handsey had a negligent discharge while he was supposed to be on medical leave. He's lied several times about what he was doing during his work hours. He's been forging documents for years in order to pad out wages. He has been removing parts from impounded cars and allowing others to do so. And he has a nearly 90-year-old man still working the street because they're personal friends, despite him being described as dangerous to work with. But no, it's still not over.
Let's go to these checks that were cashed for the insurance company. Now, I talked to the insurance company about those checks, and they had some pretty big issues with them.
Mm-hmm.
All right? That may be something that I'm going to have to turn over to somebody else to investigate criminally. If it gets to that point, I may have to do that. I don't know what the insurance checks that when you were transported to the hospital and you were supposed to pay, you weren't supposed to cash them, and you cashed 4 of them.
Oh, Lord. You gotta be kidding me.
See, Jimmy, the problem with an internal investigation is once it starts rolling, it starts opening the door to all kinds of other stuff that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a duty now to at least address it and try to figure out what's going on. In this setting, again, you're under Garrity, okay? I can't use anything you say criminally, period. Okay?
Oh, I understand.
So, all right, I want you to understand that, before you.
This is funny. These checks, I honestly, wholeheartedly, with my life, believe they were my Aflac checks. Because I talked to John Curtis, you can call him and ask him, I got him in my phone. He says, you've got a check coming, and you're going to have checks coming for your follow-up visits. I just got a check, and you can run out to my truck or give me the keys. I got $3,100 out there. I honestly, wholeheartedly, 1,000,000% believe them checks were mine. This is starting to piss me off. I made arrangements and they were taking money out of my payroll every month. Because I honestly believed they were my checks.
So did you get any Aflac checks during that time that you were getting those checks?
Yes.
Okay, so did you wonder like, hey, wait a minute, why is Aflac sending me another check?
No, because he told me that I have money coming from follow-ups.
Gotcha.
That's what I thought those checks were. That, guys, was 1,000,000% a mistake on my part, but it was not out to steal anything from anybody. I never stole anything from anybody, and I never would and never will.
There was somebody mentioned a suicide scene where $140 came up missing too. And they said that you had access to the money and that you mentioned that the dead guy wasn't going to miss the money. Do you recall anything about that?
No.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
Okay. You guys get a lot of suicides up there?
Not a whole lot.
Now they've crossed over into the realm of cashing checks that aren't yours and stealing money from the recently deceased. It wasn't enough to get paid to stay at home watching cops, or have access to free car parts, or getting paid to go four-wheeling. He is so greedy that he allegedly stole a little over $100 from a person who had just anheroed themselves.
Yeah, so in 17, you remember how many last year?
You know, the last suicide I was on was with Andy, and a guy had shot himself in a bed, in a bunk bed.
Yep, that's the incident I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So if you recall that, you recall some money being exchanged or being taken from the scene?
Andy took everything because I couldn't stand the smell,
Uh-huh.
and I do believe his family came and got everything.
Okay. The deceased family did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And again, this has got to stay here with this stuff. Did you guys ever kind of cheat your way through the qualifications? Because I looked at your qualifications, and you know, if you shot, you've only missed one round, you know, throughout 3 different guns in a couple of different years, and then you went to try to qualify this time and couldn't hit anything. Something jumps out right there, just for me as being an investigator. And then when I talked to everybody, they said they don't watch you qualify. No one's seen you qualify besides for me.
I qualified before everybody because I was told that I have to watch them.
Okay.
In case I have to testify in court, yes, they did do well, and Vermaten was their trainer.
Now, were those 100% accurate, the scores that Vermaten gave you?
Yes.
Okay.
Jeff Vermaten will not pass you if you didn't.
Okay.
He'll make you, matter of fact, I'll give you a scenario with Andy Davis. Andy wanted Jeff to say, hey, I did my hours. When Andy got in trouble in Muskegon County, he got work, he had to work at the dive team. Andy said, just tell him that I was here to work. Jeff said, absolutely not.
Okay.
I am not doing that.
And why
And he
is
wouldn't
Jeff
do it.
letting other people claim hours that never happened?
Yeah, probably I was lackadaisical at doing the timesheets every day, but I know how she is, so we have tightened it up very much because I know how particular she is.
Yeah, Jimmy,
And-
whatever happens in this investigation, man, I hope you guys tighten it up. I really do. I mean, whether you're there, whether you decide to leave, or what happens,
Oh, I'm
hope-
sure she's going to fire me.
I hope to God you guys get shit straightened out, though.
You know, and I will be the first one to look both of you in the eyes and say, yeah, we need to tighten some things up. To say I blatantly ripped off this Buckeye Lake Police Department is bull. I put 34 years of my life out there. I gave them people more than anything. I've lost a marriage over this police department, okay? I've lost girlfriends over this police department because I spent more time there than I would with them. You know, just because someone comes to my house and they see me in blue jeans and a t-shirt that says police and a Glock 27 on my side doesn't mean that I ain't working. Doesn't mean that I don't have something in the mix going on. You know, Mayor Foster, Mayor Carroll knew every time I would be working out of my house.
But Jimmy, your computer, like you said, the computer at your house has the same things the computer does at work. In fact, Oleg, you're not running at your house, I hope.
No.
You're running at work. Why go home?
Because it's more peaceful for one thing. The phone's not ringing 300,000 times. The chimes on the door is not ringing on and off. Bing, bong, you gotta walk out and curve the other side of the office. It's more peaceful and you can get more stuff done. Steve Ritter don't come in and stand at your desk and do this for 45 minutes. You
I
know?
can understand that.
And trying to get things done. And Andy wouldn't come in and do all this. And you're trying to get something done. It's like being pulled 17 different ways.
Yeah.
Like you're Stretch Armstrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's impossible to do. I understand that. Hell, it's impossible to be in your position a lot of times. It's hard.
Yeah.
I get it.
And I can tell you exactly, and you can just look at me and tell me it's none of my business. I don't care. That stuff coming out of there is from Steve Ritter. Steve Ritter wants my job.
I'll tell you what, I'll be completely 100% honest with you because I don't bullshit, and I'm not bullshitting you now. That did not come from Steve Ritter.
Some of it had to have.
None of it did.
None of it come from Steve Ritter.
Nothing in that book came from Steve Ritter.
No.
Handsey once again tries to blame the situation on borderline conspiracy about Steve Ritter wanting his job, though it's pretty clear that Andy Davis was the one who documented all of these discrepancies. Handsey almost seems surprised when the officer informs him that Stephen is not responsible for the documents.
And none of them was done to rip off anybody, discredit anybody, get any extra free money, or what, pad anything, or anything like that. The auxiliary hours and for Mayton doing them, I should have overseen it, but you know, when you delegate something, I probably should have just made sure it was right. Or I should have just did it myself. But when you got so many things going on, you delegate to this gentleman,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
And you guys are good friends, I'm sure. But you believe in him.
I do. Yeah.
And I believed in Vermaeten.
Jeff Vermaeten seems to be Handsey's only ally, but he doesn't hesitate to try and lay the blame on Vermaeten for the incorrect hour sheets. While on the other hand, Vermaeten remained pretty close-lipped about many of the actions that they took, and never seemed to actually throw Handsey under the bus. I would honestly say probably Vermaeten was a little bit of a better friend to Handsey than Handsey was to Vermaeten.
Yeah.
Now, Jimmy, how long have you been at Buckeye? Like your total years of service? How many
33,
34
34.
years, a lot of time. Do you feel in any way that the village owes you anything?
As in what?
All the time of service that you've given to the village of Buckeye Lake, do you feel that they owe you anything?
In this matter here, are we talking?
Well,
Or anything?
I think it's come to a point where, you know, you kind of get into this complacent, this is how it's been done, this is what we do. You know, you mentioned I take a lot of phone calls, I do a lot of work outside of your actual hours. I do too. I do the Facebook page, I do a lot of other things. I don't necessarily feel like, you know, the city owes me anything, but, you know, there may be times where you said, well, okay, I worked 8 hours today, but I did 2 hours outside of work. You know, because you probably did, but you didn't actually log those hours in uniform at the desk or anything.
Right.
I mean, in instances like that, I mean, do you feel like it's a wash when things like that happen?
No.
Okay, and you don't feel like the village owes you anything for all the service you've done, and, well, okay, you know, I worked this much, yeah, they had, you know, I gave them an hour over here, it's not a big deal, you know, I'm basically
No.
getting it back. You don't feel like that
No.
whatsoever? Okay.
I like to get paid for what I work. Like I said, I didn't turn in some hours because I knew I'd work myself out of a job. And that's the way it's always been. They don't give us nothing. We buy our own paper. We buy our own uniform. They give us a uniform allowance. But we buy our own boots and we buy our own guns and our belts and stuff that whatever the uniform allowance won't cover.
You know, that reminds me of something though, Jimmy, I gotta ask you before you take off here. You threw away a bunch of property the other day. Yeah.
No, it was boxes and stuff like that.
Okay. And one of them was one of our uniform shirts.
Yes,
I didn't
yes,
see that.
yeah.
Why'd you throw away our shirt?
It had been in the back of the property room forever.
So some of the stuff you threw away, was that property or just boxes? Because we found some dried up weed and all that stuff too out there. You understand, you gotta get court orders to throw that stuff out, right?
Right, that was just dirt.
Okay.
That was just the dirt.
All right.
That
I just wanna make sure that you
No.
know, because I know that
Yeah.
procedurally, you guys do a lot of stuff procedurally that makes no sense to us. But I wanna make sure that because that will get you in trouble. That'll get you
Yeah.
in trouble, like, really fast.
no, that was just dirt.
Okay. Honestly, Jimmy, do you think that you're doing a great job over there? From, let's say 2015 on, do you think that you're doing the job that you should be doing?
Yes, I do.
Okay, why do you think so?
Because I get things done, and just because that I'm not in uniform every day of the week, doesn't mean that I'm not doing something for that police department. I look for grants for cars. I look for grants for equipment. I even look for grants for generators for the police department in case the electric goes out. When the electric goes out, we're done. I've been reading the new DUI laws and getting up on the new unclassified misdemeanors on your DUSs and stuff like that. Getting ready to print that stuff out.
Well, Jimmy, you know what, didn't really want to go here with this, but I'm going to anyway because, again, it's out of respect for you. But, you know, we had quite a few officers too say they went to your house because you were threatening suicide.
What?
3 officers told us that.
Who?
The 3 that were there.
3?
They said that you wanted to kill yourself because of the insurance checks. You recall it? You recall that? And the reason I'm telling you this, Jimmy, I don't even care if you answer. This job will stress you the hell out. this job will get to you. This job will take you, they'll just take you to a point where you're like snapped.
Oh,
Jimmy, I'm just telling you because again, it's out of respect for you. That if the job's getting you this bad, maybe you gotta think about it for a while and say, is this what I wanna do?
no. You know what? The insurance check, and it wasn't an insurance, it was about my insurance on my house that flooded my
Okay.
washroom. And I said, you know what? I said, I'm just freaking sick and tired of life.
Yeah.
And everybody at that point overreacted.
But you do remember that then.
Yeah, but I didn't actually say, I'm gonna kill myself and, No, I said, I am fucking, my back words were, I'm fucking sick and tired of life because every time I turn around I get fucked.
Well, apparently you scared enough people that they were
It scared Jeff from Maitland as we were scared.
It did. It scared the shit out of him.
Yeah, I know it did.
So,
And he knows there's 3 reasons, I'll use this hand, 3 reasons that I would never hurt myself. First of all, is my son. I love that boy more than anything. Then there's 2 little girls I love. Never. That pisses me off. That pisses me off.
well, it's not meant to piss you off, Jimmy. It's meant to show you that life is valuable, man. And if you're spending most of your life just being pissed off at the world or doing something that's affecting your health, maybe you gotta look at it and just say, man, I don't wanna do all this crap. You know what I mean? Maybe at some point you just say, I gotta make my life easier. And I'm not saying to quit. I'm saying find a way to make your life easier.
You know, it's
You know what I'm
funny. These guys want to write all this stuff down. Maybe I should have been keeping a book on Andy Davis. Maybe I should have been keeping a book on.
No, you should have been doing, what you should have been doing is being the chief of police and saying, you know what, you're not doing your job right. Here's your write-up for this, here's your but to do that, you've got to be a supervisor. To do that, you've got to be an asshole sometimes, and to do that, you've got to be on top of shit. What's the story about the suicide gun?
What I got wrote down in there.
Yeah.
Basically, Jimmy was, Vermaiden had called me and said, hey, I need you to get over here at Jimmy's house. I think priority 1 is what I put down even. So I hurried up and got there, and I heard him kind of in there yelling a little bit, and Jimmy had a gun in his hand, and he's like, I'm gonna kill myself. And I'm talking to him saying, Jimmy, don't do that. And he's like, I've done lost everything. He's like, I'm already in trouble with Clay for some sort of insurance check that he cashed. What I thought it was and what it is now or what I know now, because of being rushed to the hospital, what happens is the village got a check. It's kind of hard to explain. Sorry, guys.
You're fine.
But
What did they get the check for?
he got the check for being rushed to the hospital. So he'd gotten this check, but it was made out like I got one.
It was
when
meant
I
to
was-
go to the town or to the
fire department.
Oh, so the insurance company was paying the fire department.
Yeah, and the check was actually made out to Jimmy, which I got one of those checks too, and we had to take it into the village office and say, hey, look, what's this check here for?
Gotcha.
I don't want to cash it and get in trouble. You know what I
Right.
mean? Cash something that's not mine.
In 2015, you talked about a gun that was used in a suicide, and that Jimmy, you needed to find the gun because the coroner's office was saying that to go and destroy all the evidence, and you couldn't find the gun,
Yeah,
and then it reappeared after you couldn't find it.
yeah.
Let me tell you this, where this stands from. And you can believe me or you can't believe me. The day Ron Small retired, Ron Small's Andy's father-in-law. Okay?
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Andy married Ron's daughter, Rhonda. All right? When Ron was retiring, Ron wanted to retire, and then he wanted to come back 3 days a week, and then I worked the rest of the week. I worked with him them 3 days, but I finished it out. He wanted to be the chief of police, he wanted to keep his sick time, and he wanted to keep his vacations 5 weeks a year. Mayor Baker said, no. I don't know what happened between them, but one day I come in the office and Ron said, if I would retire today, who would you put in your place? I said, well, I probably put in Andy. He said, good, because if you had said verbatim, I wasn't retiring. I'm retiring as of Friday. All right?
So you promoted Andy to sergeant because of that?
No.
Okay.
He said, Andy's your new sergeant. I've already worked it out with Mayor Baker. You're going to start him out at this amount of money. Okay. I didn't know I was going to put him on as sergeant or anything else. I thought maybe he'd just come on full-time as a patrolman, but okay. Ron already worked everything out.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in 2013. 2014, I reached the point where I could retire with Ohio Police and Fire. Okay? I asked the mayor, which was a new mayor, Clay Carroll. I'm to the point where I can retire. It's not going to do me a lot of good to work. Can I retire and can I come back? I said, this is what I'll do. I'll give you my sick time and I'll give you my vacation and I'll start at 0. I said, then you won't have to find someone. You already know I can do the job. He said, let me kick it around. 2 days later, he called me and said, yes, you can. It's all right. Went to the retirement board and I retired. Knowing Ron was going to be madder than hell. Ron's a very vindictive man. Ron's a very greedy man. And nothing in this world matters anything other than money to that man. So I said, let me be the one to tell him. I think I can tell him in an easy way that will not piss him off. Boy, was I wrong. He called me every name in the book in the Dollar General parking lot. He said this was his favorite words, was bullfuck. He left. He called one of our council members, just tore them a new ass that he was friends with, Barry Heron. And then 2 weeks later, he calls the Mayor Carroll and tells Mayor Carroll that I'm worthless and I do nothing. Threw me under the bus. So, this little book that we have here is from his son-in-law because Andy is the same damn way.
Handsey finally puts it together and realizes that it was Sergeant Andy Davis who was behind the red book that lies before him. On May 18th of 2018, it was decided by the village council that Chief Handsey would be terminated. Only 2 of the 8 council members disagreed with his termination. Following his termination, would file 22 administrative counts against Handsey. Despite his multitude of criminal actions during his short run as police chief, Chief Handsey would only be indicted on 2 accounts of unauthorized access to a police database, both of which are felonies. Jeff Vermaeten would assist in walking out as one superior officer from the court.
In there. Leave me alone, Jeff! You're gonna piss me off more!
This would seem to be the end of the Buckeye Lake saga, if it wasn't for the unfortunate reality that just a few short months ago, in August of 2020, Officer Stephen Ritter II was found murdered via gunshot wound by his son, Stephen Ritter III. The drama that this very small department got themselves into would make for a pretty entertaining miniseries, but we live in an era where cops are heavily scrutinized, and people want to see them held to a very high standard. While the actions of this department may not have led directly to someone's death, it was a blatant example of corruption, laziness, and abuse of authority. The officers in the Pataskala department were on a whole nother level. They all appeared much more physically fit, professional, and direct. I imagine, in the back of their minds, they must have been aware on some level of how bad the incompetence was in their fellow department. But this was all once upon a time in Little Buckeye.